Hey, what's going on? Luke here, and this Sunday sees the 2023 NRL Grand Final will take place between the Penrith Panthers and the Brisbane Broncos. Now, it's the big dance, it's the last game of the season, it's a big occasion, and, what other team's going to be there for a big occasion than the Penrith Panthers? You can sort of really sit here and I can, go through all the accolades, all the previous things that they've won. Obviously, they're back-to-back premiers looking for a 3-peat. They've made the last 4 grand finals. We already know that they're a fantastic side. They've been the best side of at least, the modern era. You can argue maybe the best side of all time, depending on if they actually win this game. But then you have the Brisbane Broncos, who are probably one of the most entertaining. They've got a lot of flair. Just a very fun side to watch. They've obviously got Reece Walsh. Ezra Mann's good to watch. They've got Herbie Farnworth, got Katoni Staggs, Selwyn Cobbo, another good one. The 4-pack's fantastic. If there was ever a side that was going to knock off the Penrith Panthers in the grand final, it'd be this Brisbane Broncos side. Now, do I think that's going to be the case? Probably not. Probably not, if I'm being completely honest with ya. Obviously, this is my tips and predictions videos for the grand final. So I guess that is my tip and prediction, is that the Penrith Panthers are going to do the 3-peat. I'll go into a little bit more in depth as to why I think that's going to be the case. Now, I think the Broncos, like I said, if there was a team who was going to be able to do it, it'd be the Brisbane Broncos. The only problem for me is that there is no team who can do it at this point. The Panthers are just so strong. Jerome Luai, if he goes down injured, Jack Colger comes in. If any of the backs sort of go down injured, they just chuck in someone else. They just seem to be able to just plug in players just willy-nilly, and they just come in and they do a job, depending on who there is. Like every year, I've sort of sat here and I've like, well, they're losing Burt and they're losing Kickout, they're losing Kate, certain other players as well. There's heaps of them. And they just sort of chuck in the next guy off the ranks, and they come in and they look just as good. And then those guys move to other sides and they look decent, but, they don't seem to sort of live up to the hype that they were at the Panthers. Exceptions obviously being a guy like Kurt Capewell, who is, funnily enough, playing for the Broncos. But I think it's going to be a hell of a game regardless. I think it's going to be a very, very entertaining game. Kind of reminds me a lot, and I think this is a comparison that's been made quite a bit by a lot of pundits and a lot of people making these sort of videos, is I'm a Bulldog supporter. You have a team like the Bulldogs, although they did actually get the minor premiership, but throughout the regular season, even throughout the finals, for me, they were the best side in 2012. Come up against a well-established, a clinical side in the Melbourne Storm, who obviously had been, at that point, to more grand finals. Wasn't legal, but they'd been to more grand finals and had the big game experience, and they pretty much just shut the Bulldogs down from start to finish. And it was a close game at times, and the scoreline reflected it, but it was kind of just like the Storm in control the whole game. And that's kind of how I see this game going. I think there's going to be a lot of attacking flair. I don't know if there's necessarily going to be a lot of tries, but I think there's going to be a lot of attack from the Broncos. They're going to throw a lot at them, but the Panthers side is they're just so good in defense. I can't really see them sort of wielding. I can't really see them conceding a lot of tries. It just doesn't happen for the Panthers, and I can see the Broncos sort of giving in to the pressure, and Panthers just being relentless. Kind of what they did to the Eels pretty much last year. They were just relentless. Eels never even got a sniff, and that's kind of what I feel like the Broncos might experience. I think the Broncos are a better side than the Eels side. I think the Eels are very fortunate last year to get there. But the Broncos, let's be real, the Broncos, they're not a side that has had to have these mad challenges to get to the grand final. They've had a pretty easy run. They've played home games. Obviously, the Brisbane crowd is really going to get behind them. Similar to the Warriors. If the Warriors play in New Zealand, I'm going to tip them. If the Broncos play in front of a Brisbane crowd, I'm going to tip them. They dusted off the Storm, who have been underwhelming. They didn't have Jerome Hughes. Then they beat the Warriors away from home, and then now they're in the grand final. Kind of a little bit underwhelming in terms of opposition, and this is kind of what I want to get into, is that maybe if they come up against another side, like if the Panthers just weren't in the comp and they come up against another side, I think Broncos absolutely dust every other team. However, the Panthers are there, and the Panthers, like I've said, they're so clinical. Even if they play like a 7 out of 10, I think they still win this one, whereas the Broncos, they have to play the most perfect game of all time, the most perfect game they've ever played this season, and probably for many, many seasons, just to even get a sniff. That's kind of how good Panthers are at the moment. Again, who would have thought, you could lose Coruscant, and this is just going from last year, lose Coruscant and you lose Kickout, to what I would say was very important players to that side, and yet they don't really look any different. They look just as good. Sort of a little bit different. Yes, I do think last year's side would beat this year's side, but just in terms of just how effective these guys are, just so good. And the defense doesn't get any weaker, the attack doesn't get any weaker. And even in finals in previous years, I know obviously the grand final last year was a bit of a blowout. They absolutely smashed Parramatta, but we saw in previous years too, they could get the job done when they weren't particularly playing that well in the finals. They were just doing enough to get the job done and win. And that's what's kind of scary about the Panthers. If they come out and you look, they're like, oh, they're a little bit off. Doesn't really mean anything, because I can still think they're going to win. Like, they can come out and, Broncos might be able to get an early try, and I think that's what the Broncos need to do. They need to really rattle the Panthers and put them under a lot of pressure, because I don't think they've really been under too much pressure in the previous final series, even throughout this final series. They've sort of gone in, scored at will, and sort of been pretty comfortable throughout the whole game. Enough that, they could just chuck in Jerome Luai with an injury cloud and be like, if he gets through it, we'll just, that's good, but we'll just chuck in Cogger if we have to. Not a problem. Whereas every other team would be absolutely stressing, like, our star 5'8" is injured. Just, think about that in itself. You got the New South Wales 5'8", I know he wasn't in the last game, but the New South Wales 5'8", who was ruled out for the season, comes back in, and there was, no stresses about, whether Luai would even play or not. It was like, if he plays, if he doesn't, doesn't really matter. They're still going to win the premiership anyways, and I think that's such a luxury. Then on the contrast, say for example, Herbie Farnworth went down in training, hamstring injury. That's disaster for the Broncos. Imagine if Reece Walsh went down. It'd be like, oh my god, they may as well not even show up. That's how big of a difference it is if Payne Haas goes down, or, just one of the Broncos players goes down. It'd be huge news. Well, obviously, it'd be huge news if, Jerome Luai doesn't play, or, say, for example, Nathan Cleary. If he goes down, huge. It's huge. However, I still would back Penrith to win if they chuck in a Jack Cogger, or if, someone in the back line goes down, they can just chuck in the next guy. And I'd be like, well, okay, it is a big deal that they're out, but it's not, end of the world. Whereas for the Broncos, Herbie Farnworth going down, it's big news. Even just a little strain, it's oh no, that's one big part of their attack gone. But look, the Broncos, I feel like I'm not giving them enough credit, because they're a fantastic side, and I feel like I'm talking about the Panthers a lot, and it's purely just down to the fact that the Panthers have been so good and so consistent for years and years at this point. So it's hard not to talk about them so positively. But in terms of the Broncos themselves, what do they bring to the table? Obviously, I've talked about their attack. Their defense needs to be so much better than what it's been all season. However, big games like this, maybe you can bring it out of them. Maybe they'll get lucky. Maybe Penrith go into their shell. Maybe they'll underestimate them. I don't think it'll be the case, but yeah, Broncos need to get off to a strong start. They need to get off to a quick start, in my opinion. I don't think they can sort of be going into the 50, 60 minute mark and it be a close game, a couple points here and there. Because I think Panthers will just tire them out. They will just suck the life out of the Broncos side. And that's honestly what I think and kind of expect to happen, is that I think Panthers would just sort of wear them down, and then eventually Broncos would give way, and maybe the Panthers will sort of run away with it. I think if Broncos win, I think they'll win well. I don't think it's going to be a close game if Broncos win. I think they'll have to ride all the momentum, and they'll need a big game from Reece Walsh. I think if they win, he's man of the match, or Adam Reynolds, one of the two. But yeah, there is a couple good storylines. Obviously, Kurt Capewell taking on his old side, taking on the Panthers side. The team that, when he last won a premiership, his last game was playing in a grand final up against Rabbitohs, win a premiership for the Panthers. Taking on Adam Reynolds, who also gets another chance to try and knock off the Penrith Panthers as well. So there's a couple good little storylines there. Also, you got matchups like Dylan Edwards up against Reece Walsh. Then you got Reynolds up against Cleary once again. Even little underrated ones where the hook position, you got Billy Walters, who's been super underrated, been very, very good for them, but also taking on Mitch Kenny, for me, super underrated as well. Obviously, he's been around for quite some time, but I had so many question marks over him, and honestly, I thought he was going to be super detrimental to the Panthers side in terms of them trying to do a three-peat. I thought there's no way they win with Mitch Kenny, but yeah, here they are, another grand final, going in as heavy, heavy favourites in my opinion. But yeah, look, it's going to be a good game regardless. I think if it's a tight game, it's going to be an entertaining game, because I can't see the Broncos not throwing much at them. Even if it's close or they're getting blown out, I don't see them giving up or not really throwing too much, but playing conservative. I see them almost probably playing too stupid, maybe throwing too much at it and just making a lot of errors. That's probably a thing. Say Reece Walsh, for example, fantastic player. Probably the best fullback in the game at the moment, in terms of, you can sort of argue depending on the day, but you can argue that he's the best fullback in the game, but does make a lot of errors, and so does the rest of the Broncos side, and I think that's just one big factor that I think is going to be a huge difference. When they take on a team like the Warriors, they can get away with it. Can't get away with it against a team like the Panthers, and not in a grand final, not when they've been working all year for this game. They would have went into this season expecting to be in the grand final, not just happy to be there, which maybe the Broncos are. And it's a thing that you see the players talk about time and time again, is that they kind of expect that they'll be there next year, or they'll be there in another couple of years, and it's not that big of a deal. Well, obviously it is a big deal, but they kind of just have in their head oh, well, we're young, will end up getting there. I'm looking at the Broncos side. They are so young. So I can easily see them, especially like looking at the Panthers side as well, who have been getting there year after year, and them sort of going, well, why can't we do the same? But I just think, like, obviously the Broncos are going to be hungry, but the Panthers, they're just like next level. Like every other team that I've sort of seen in the history of like the NRL, back to back was a big thing because it was like teams lose their hunger and they lose their desire, but the Panthers just don't seem to lose it. They just seem to want to annihilate sides year after year, and honestly, Broncos fans, you're not going to hear it, but I think it's going to happen. I'm expecting, like, for my tips and predictions, the score to be 13 plus. I think Panthers win this one. I think first try scorer, I'm going to go Brian To'o. I think he's definitely going to score a try. Whether it's first try scorer, I don't know, but I think he's going to be the first try scorer. In terms of last try scorer, I think we're going to see someone like maybe like a Mitch Kenny or someone like that you probably wouldn't expect, but I think it's still going to be for the Panthers side. I think your man of the match is going to be Nathan Cleary. I think sort of regardless, even if he is the best player in the field, and I think as long as Panthers win, I think he's going to get the Clive Churchill. Don't know if he's actually got a Clive Churchill yet. Dylan Edwards was last year. I can't remember who was the year before. Maybe it was Cleary, but I think he's going to get the Clive Churchill. I think maybe in terms of like Broncos, if anyone's got to score a try, I think maybe like Katoni Staggs might get over, or Farmer. I think one of the centers might get over. So I think they're going to concede a few tries through the centers as well. I think they're a little bit shaky there, but yeah, look, overall, going to be a fantastic game, going to be a fantastic day. Obviously, you got the women's game as well, which is going to be a good one. You got like the State Cup game. I know the Rabbitohs are playing in that one as well, so it is going to be very good. I think of the women's, I think maybe the Knights might take it out, so shout out to the Knights. Yeah, it's going to be a very, very good game, a good day overall in general. Grand final day, it's always a nice hyped up day, so I'll hopefully try and do plenty of content in the lead up to it, and yeah, look, speaking of content, this is where this one's going to end. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully did enjoy that. Enjoy the predictions. Let me know in the comment section below. What are your thoughts? What are your predictions on the game? Obviously, I didn't go over like the lineups 1 to 17. You can find that anywhere. Just thought I'd give my thoughts of the game, do a little preview. But yeah, let me know in the comment section below. Who do you think's going to win? Is it going to be the Panthers or is it going to be the Broncos? And, go through your, first try scorers, man of the match, all that sort of stuff as well. Anyways, time to wrap things up here. Hopefully did enjoy that one. If you did, make sure you go ahead and smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Like I said, been uploading as of late quite consistently. Obviously, it's Grand Final week. Going to be making plenty of videos. Probably got another video coming out today as well, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, if you happen to enjoy it, leave a like, subscribe. Go ahead and chuck me a follow on social media. It's on the screen right now. It's Mr. Luke and YT. I was going to say for the most part, but it's for everything. So Mr. Luke and YT, give me a follow, give me an ad. Also got my second channel where I'm uploading some EAFC, FIFA 24, EAFC 24, whichever you prefer, officially EAFC, but go and check that out. Links in the description below. It's Mr. Luke FIFA. Go ahead and subscribe to that. Also, shout out to the members. Thanks to everybody who stuck by me during the times when I'm sick. I've been quite sick for quite some time, and you guys have stuck solid with me. You've stayed a member throughout the whole time. It's all the super chatters as well. I've done a few streams here and there, and you guys have been super chatting every single time. So shout out to all of you guys. Thank you for staying solid with me, and I appreciate you all so much. So yeah, thank you. And look, that's where I'm going to end this video. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you got this far through the video, and if you did, thank you, and I'll see you some next one. See yous.